Her name was Claire Mitchell. For 12 years, she had been married to Daniel Mitchell, a man who once promised her forever. But somewhere along the way, forever became nothing. It didn't happen all at once. It started small. A missed anniversary dinner because of a work call. A birthday where he forgot to even send a text. Conversations that used to last hours now barely reached 2 minutes. She would sit across from him at breakfast, and he wouldn't even look up from his phone. She stopped trying to hold his hand. He stopped noticing. Claire wasn't loud about her pain. She didn't throw plates or scream or make scenes. She just faded, and no one seemed to care. Not Daniel. Not his family. Not even their mutual friends, who slowly stopped inviting her anywhere. She became invisible in her own life. One evening, Claire stood in the kitchen of their large, empty house. She had made dinner. Roasted chicken. Mashed potatoes. His favorite. She set the table for 2. Candles. Cloth napkins. She waited. 7 o'clock came and went. 8. 9. At 10:15, Daniel walked in. He barely glanced at the cold food on the table. "I already ate," he said flatly. Then he walked upstairs. Claire sat there in the dim light, staring at the untouched meal. She didn't cry. She had run out of tears months ago. But something inside her broke. Not in a loud, dramatic way. In a quiet, final way. The kind of break that doesn't heal. 2 weeks later, Claire left. She didn't leave a note. She didn't ask for anything. She just packed one suitcase, took her grandmother's necklace, and walked out the front door. Daniel didn't notice she was gone until 3 days later. And even then, he didn't call. He didn't search. He just moved on. As if 12 years of marriage had never existed. As if she had never existed. But here's the thing. Claire didn't vanish to fall apart. She vanished to rebuild. And what she became in those 2 years away was something no one saw coming. 2 years passed. Daniel's life looked perfect from the outside. He was now the CEO of a major tech firm in the city. He attended charity events. He smiled for cameras. He wore expensive suits and gave speeches about leadership and vision. People admired him. They called him successful. But if you looked closely, really closely, you'd see the cracks. The way he drank a little too much at dinners. The way his eyes looked tired, even when he smiled. The way he never mentioned his wife. Because to everyone in his new circle, Claire didn't exist. He had erased her. Rewritten his own story. He told people he was formerly married, but never elaborated. Most assumed it ended badly. No one asked questions. One afternoon, Daniel's assistant brought him a gold-embossed envelope. It was an invitation. The annual Whitmore Foundation Gala. The biggest event of the year. Politicians, CEOs, old money families. Everyone who mattered would be there. Daniel had been trying to get invited for years. This was his moment. He smiled. "Confirm my attendance," he said. "And make sure I'm seated near the Langfords." The assistant nodded and left. Daniel leaned back in his chair, feeling like everything was finally falling into place. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers. White marble floors. Tables draped in silk. A live orchestra played softly in the corner. Daniel walked in wearing a custom tuxedo, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, playing the part perfectly. He felt powerful. Untouchable. Then the room went quiet. Not all at once. It started as a ripple. A few heads turning toward the entrance. Then more. Daniel noticed people staring. Whispering. He turned. And froze. Standing at the top of the grand staircase was a woman. She wore a deep navy gown, simple, elegant, timeless. Her hair was pulled back, revealing a face he hadn't seen in 2 years. But it wasn't the same face. It was sharper now. Stronger. Calm. She wasn't the woman who had faded into the background of his life. This woman commanded attention without trying. Claire. She descended the stairs slowly. Every eye in the room followed her. Daniel's chest tightened. His throat went dry. What is she doing here? She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't part of this world anymore. She was supposed to be gone. But here she was. And she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Margaret Whitmore, the founder of the charity, one of the most respected women in the city. Margaret's arm was linked with Claire's. They were talking like old friends. No, not friends. Like equals. Daniel felt the room shift around him. People were looking at him now. Confused. Curious. Someone leaned over and whispered, "Isn't that Daniel Mitchell's wife?" Another voice, "I thought they were divorced." Another, "I didn't even know he was married." Daniel's face burned. He tried to smile, tried to look unbothered, but his hands were shaking. Claire reached the bottom of the staircase. For just a moment, a single brief moment, her eyes met his. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at him, like he was a stranger. Then she turned away. And Daniel realized something that made his stomach drop. She wasn't here for him. She wasn't here to confront him or beg or make a scene. She was here because she belonged here. And he had no idea how. What had she been doing for 2 years? And why did everyone seem to know her, except him? Daniel couldn't focus the rest of the night. He tried to make conversation, tried to laugh at the right moments. But his eyes kept drifting across the room to where Claire stood. She was surrounded by people. Important people. They weren't just being polite. They were drawn to her. Listening. Laughing. Leaning in. One of the city's biggest donors shook her hand warmly. A senator's wife kissed her on both cheeks. Even the mayor stopped to speak with her. Daniel felt like he was watching a stranger. At one point, Margaret Whitmore took the stage to give a speech. She thanked the donors, talked about the foundation's mission. Then she said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. This year, we owe so much of our success to one person. A woman who believed in this cause when no one else did. A woman who gave not just her money, but her heart. Margaret smiled warmly. "Claire Mitchell, would you please stand?" The room erupted in applause. Claire stood, gracious and humble. She didn't make a speech. She just nodded, smiled softly, and sat back down. But the message was clear. She wasn't just a guest. She was a benefactor. A key figure in one of the city's most respected charities. Daniel felt his world tilting. How? When she left, she had nothing. No career. No connections. No money of her own. He had always been the one with power. The one people knew. But now she was the one they respected. And he was just the man she used to be married to. After the speeches, Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He made his way across the room. His heart pounded in his chest. Claire was standing near the tall windows, holding a glass of champagne, talking quietly with an older woman. When Daniel approached, the woman excused herself. Claire didn't turn around, but she knew he was there. "Claire." His voice came out rougher than he intended. She turned slowly. Her expression was unreadable. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" She tilted her head slightly. "I was invited." "By who?" "Margaret Whitmore. We've been working together for over a year." Daniel blinked. "A year? Closer to 18 months. He struggled to find words. I didn't know you were involved in charity work. You didn't know a lot of things about me." Her voice wasn't bitter, just factual. It stung worse than anger would have. "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving?" he asked. "I did," she said quietly. "Just not with words." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I told you every day, Daniel. With every dinner you missed. Every conversation you ignored. Every time you looked right through me like I wasn't even there. She paused. I screamed in silence for 2 years. You just never heard me. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Isn't it? She looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time he felt small. You erased me from your life long before I left, Claire said. I just made it official. Before Daniel could respond, a man approached. Tall, well-dressed, confident. Claire, they're ready for you in the gallery. She smiled, a real smile, one Daniel hadn't seen in years. Thank you, James. I'll be right there. The man nodded politely at Daniel and walked away. Daniel stared after him. Who was that? A colleague. A colleague in what? Claire set down her glass. I run an art gallery now, Daniel. It's small, but it's mine. We focus on emerging artists who've been overlooked. People who deserve to be seen. She looked at him one last time. I guess I have a soft spot for the invisible. Then she walked away. And Daniel stood there, alone in a room full of people, realizing something he should have known a long time ago. He had lost her. Not when she walked out the door, but long, long before that. And the night was just beginning. The rest of the gala blurred for Daniel. He went through the motions, shook hands, made small talk, smiled when expected. But inside he was unraveling. People kept asking him about Claire. Your wife is wonderful. You must be so proud. How long has she been involved with the foundation? Every question felt like a knife. Because the truth was he didn't know. He didn't know anything about her life now. And worse, he was starting to realize he hadn't known much about her life then either. Later in the evening, Daniel found himself standing near the silent auction tables. He needed air, space. But then he overheard a conversation. 2 women, both in their 50s, standing a few feet away. They didn't notice him. I still can't believe that's Daniel Mitchell, one of them said quietly. I know. Margaret told me the whole story. He really didn't know she was gone for 3 days? 3 days. Can you imagine? The other woman shook her head. And he never even called her after she left. Not once. Margaret said Claire was heartbroken for months. She barely spoke when she first started volunteering. But look at her now. I know. She's incredible. Honestly, he didn't deserve her. Clearly. They walked away. Daniel stood frozen. His hands were clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned white. He told himself they were wrong, that they didn't know the full story. But deep down he knew. They were right. Every word. As the night wore on, Daniel kept watching Claire from across the room. She moved through the crowd with ease. Graceful. Warm. Present. She listened when people spoke. She laughed at the right moments. She made everyone around her feel seen. It hit him like a punch to the gut. This was who she had always been. He had just stopped noticing. Near the end of the evening, Margaret Whitmore approached Daniel. She was polite, but there was something in her eyes. Something sharp. Mr. Mitchell, she said smoothly. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. I'm Margaret Whitmore. I know who you are, Daniel said, forcing a smile. It's an honor. Likewise. She paused. Claire speaks very highly of you. Daniel blinked. She does. Well, Margaret corrected, her smile tightening just slightly. She speaks of you. Whether it's highly, that's up for interpretation. The comment was subtle, but it landed. She's done remarkable work with us, Margaret continued. When she first came to volunteer, she was so quiet, unsure of herself. But I saw something in her. Strength. Resilience. She looked at Daniel directly now. It's amazing what people can become when they're finally seen. The words hung in the air. Margaret smiled politely. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Mr. Mitchell. And she walked away. Daniel felt something crack inside him. Not loudly, but deeply. It was nearly midnight when Daniel finally found Claire alone. She was standing on the balcony outside the ballroom, looking out over the city lights. The air was cool. Quiet. He stepped outside. She didn't turn around. "You followed me," she said softly. "I needed to talk to you." "We already talked." "No," Daniel said. "You talked." "I barely said anything." Claire finally turned to face him. Her expression was calm. Too calm. "What do you want me to say, Daniel?" "I don't know." "Something." "Anything." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't understand how this happened. How we got here. You really don't, do you?" He shook his head. Claire let out a slow breath. "Do you remember our 10th anniversary?" Daniel hesitated. "Of course." "Do you remember what I said to you that night?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't. Claire smiled sadly. "I told you I felt like I was disappearing, that I didn't know who I was anymore, that I needed you to see me again." She paused. "You told me you were tired and went to bed." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Claire, I'm not telling you this to hurt you," she said quietly. "I'm telling you because you asked. You asked how we got here. That's how. 1,000 small moments where I reached out. And you weren't there." There was a long silence. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I'm sorry. I know you are. Then why does it feel like it doesn't matter?" Claire looked at him with something close to pity. "Because sorry doesn't undo 2 years of silence, Daniel. It doesn't give me back the nights I cried myself to sleep. It doesn't erase the fact that you didn't even notice I was gone." Her voice didn't waver. "You're sorry now because you saw me tonight and realized I'm not broken. But if I had stayed small and quiet and invisible, would you even care?" Daniel didn't answer. Because he didn't know. "I didn't come here for you," Claire said. "I came here because Margaret invited me. Because I've built something real. Something that matters." She looked out over the city again. "For the first time in years, I feel like I exist." Daniel swallowed hard. "Do you hate me?" Claire turned back to him. "No," she said. "I don't hate you, Daniel. I just don't feel anything anymore." And somehow that was worse. She started to walk past him. He reached out, gently touching her arm. "Claire, wait." She stopped. What if we tried again? What if I? No." The word was soft but final. "You don't get to do this," she said. "You don't get to see me standing on my own and suddenly decide I'm worth your time." She pulled her arm away. "I deserved to be seen when I was broken. When I was begging for your attention. When I still believed in us." Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. "You don't get to love me now that I've learned to love myself." And with that, she walked back inside, leaving Daniel alone on the balcony. The sound of the city humming below. The weight of everything he had lost pressing down on him. Was it too late? Or had it always been? The days following the gala were strange for Daniel. He went back to work. Back to meetings and emails and conference calls. But everything felt hollow. People in the office noticed. "You okay, boss?" his assistant asked one morning. "Fine," Daniel lied. But he wasn't fine. He kept replaying that night in his head. The way Claire had looked at him. The way she had walked away. The way she had said she felt nothing. A week later, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He went to their old house. The one they had shared. The one she had left. He stood in the kitchen where she used to cook. The table was gone now. He'd gotten rid of it after she left. Too many memories. But standing there now, he could still see her. Sitting alone. Waiting for him. Night after night. He went upstairs to what used to be their bedroom. It looked different now. Colder. He opened the closet. Her side was still empty. He ran his hand along the bare hangers. And for the first time in 2 years, Daniel cried. Not because he missed her, but because he realized he had never truly known her at all. Meanwhile, Claire's life continued to grow. Her gallery, a small, intimate space in the arts district, was thriving. She had just hosted her third exhibition. Local papers had started covering her events. People were talking, not about her past, about her vision, her ability to see talent where others didn't. She had become exactly what she always wanted to be, someone who mattered. One afternoon, Claire sat in her gallery office, reviewing submissions from new artists. Her assistant poked her head in. "Claire, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" She didn't say. "But she seems nervous." Claire frowned and walked out to the main floor. Standing near one of the paintings was a young woman. Early 20s. Blonde hair. Uncertain eyes. She turned when she heard Claire approach. "Hi," the woman said quietly. "I'm sorry to just show up. I wasn't sure if I should." "It's okay," Claire said gently. "How can I help you?" The woman hesitated. Then she said, "My name is Emily. I'm Daniel Mitchell's assistant." Claire's expression didn't change, but inside her stomach tightened. "I know I probably shouldn't be here," Emily continued quickly. "But I needed to say something." Claire waited. Emily took a breath. "I've worked for him for 3 years, and in that time I've watched him become smaller, quieter. He doesn't talk about his personal life. Ever. But after the gala, something changed." She looked down. "He's been different. Distracted. I think he finally realized what he lost." Claire's voice was calm. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't think he'll ever say it himself. And I thought you should know." There was a long pause. Then Claire said softly, "Thank you for coming. But what Daniel feels now doesn't change what happened. It doesn't undo the years I spent invisible." Emily nodded slowly. "I understand." She turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth," Emily said quietly, "I think you're amazing. What you've built here, it's incredible." Claire smiled. A real smile. "Thank you." And Emily left. Claire stood alone in the quiet gallery. She didn't feel angry. She didn't feel sad. She just felt free. A month after the gala, the city's largest newspaper ran a feature. "The woman behind the art. How Claire Mitchell became the gallery owner everyone's talking about." The article was glowing. It talked about her journey, her vision, her impact on emerging artists. And buried near the end, almost as an afterthought, was a single line. Mitchell was previously married to tech CEO Daniel Mitchell, though she prefers not to discuss her past. That one line sent shockwaves through Daniel's world. People started connecting the dots. At business lunches, colleagues would say things like, "Wait, your ex-wife is that Claire Mitchell? I had no idea you were married to her. She's doing incredible work." Every comment felt like a reminder of what he had, of what he lost, of who he had failed to see. One evening, Daniel attended a networking event. A man approached him, someone he'd been trying to impress for months. "Daniel, good to see you." "Likewise." The man smiled. "I met your ex-wife last week. Claire. Fascinating woman." Daniel forced a smile. "Yes, she is." "You two still in touch?" "Not really." The man nodded slowly. "Shame. She speaks very fondly of her time away from, well, her old life." The words hung in the air. The man walked away, and Daniel realized something crushing. His reputation was changing, not because of something he did, but because of something he didn't do. People were starting to see him not as a success story, but as the man who let Claire Mitchell slip away. 6 months after the gala, Daniel saw Claire one last time. It wasn't planned. He was walking through the city on a Saturday afternoon. And there she was, standing outside her gallery, laughing with a group of people. Artists, probably. She looked radiant. Alive. Daniel stopped walking. He just watched. One of the people with her was James, the man from the Gala. He said something that made Claire laugh. A deep, genuine laugh. The kind Daniel hadn't heard from her in years. Maybe ever. For a moment, Daniel thought about walking over. Saying hello. Trying one more time. But then Claire glanced up. Their eyes met across the street. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at him. And in that look, Daniel saw everything. The past. The pain. The closure. Claire gave him a small nod. Not unkind. Just final. Then she turned back to her friends. And Daniel understood. This was it. The end of their story. Not with drama. Not with shouting or tears. Just quiet acceptance. He turned and walked away. And as he did, he realized something. Claire hadn't just survived without him. She had thrived. And he had become a footnote in her story. A chapter she had closed. And moved on from. A year later, Claire's gallery had expanded. She now had 2 locations. She was invited to speak at art conferences. Her name carried weight in circles that mattered. She had become someone people admired. Not because of who she was married to, but because of who she was. Daniel, meanwhile, was still successful. Still wealthy. Still respected in business. But at night, when he sat alone in his apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling. The feeling that he had spent his entire life chasing the wrong things. That he had held the most valuable thing in his hands. And let it slip away. One evening, Daniel received an invitation in the mail. Claire's gallery was hosting a major exhibition. The theme, voices that were silenced. He stared at the invitation for a long time. Then he threw it away. Not out of anger, but because he knew he didn't belong in her world anymore. And maybe he never really had. The end. But here's the question that lingers. When someone is screaming in silence, is it our fault if we don't hear them? Or is it theirs for not screaming louder? What do you think?